Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to my podcast, Rewire to Inspire. I am your host, Jessie Brown, and I am trying my best to show up for today's episode number 167. I hope you guys all enjoyed my latest episode, 166, where I shared with you guys why you need to let go of anything no longer serving you. I thoroughly enjoyed recording that episode because I think that it's really crucial that we get things out of our life that aren't serving us so that we can begin to make space for new things to come in. I think the fall is a great reminder of shedding things that are no longer in alignment for us, are no longer serving us. And so if you haven't checked out that episode, I definitely encourage you to. If you haven't already noticed, which I'm sure you have, my voice is not what it typically is. So a couple things are different today. If you're watching video, you can see that I am standing. I'm holding my microphone versus sitting and it being on a stand. I felt like to get the best out of my voice today, it would be better to stand up. So I have been sick for the last week. I had completely lost my voice earlier in the week. It is starting to come back. So today's episode is going to be quicker. However, I refuse to miss. I refuse to miss creating content. I refuse to miss uploading an episode on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so I knew, regardless of maybe what this sounds like, I knew that I had to show up. And I was asking myself, okay, within that, what do I want to share with each and every one of you? Because a lot of you might be saying, well, you should be resting your voice. You should be taking it easy. And that is exactly why today's episode is being recorded later than usual. I typically record my episodes on Friday. Today is a Sunday afternoon. And it was genuinely bothering me all week thinking, what if I can't record? It got to the point that I was looking into different AI software so I could see, like, if I type out my episode, could an AI read it for one of my days, do something different, but just so I don't miss. I was going to ask my partner if he could record an episode for me. I was just trying to find all the ways to be able to show up so that I don't miss. The reason for that is because I strive myself on what I say is what I will do. I take a lot of pride in that I have made a promise that I will not miss uploading an episode every Tuesday and Thursday. And to me, that bothers me on a core level. That bothers me so much that I knew I had to find a way to be adaptive to make sure that I'm showing up on here. And so today, what I wanted to ask you guys and pose a question to you guys is, how do you respond when things are out of your control? As a podcaster and a speaker, and funny enough, I started basketball coaching. My very first practice, which I'm grateful that my partner is coaching with me, was there to help me. Very first practice, I had barely any voice. Obviously not an ideal situation, but we made it work. And so my question that I want to pose to you that came up for me this week is, how do you uniquely respond when things are out of your control? When there's nothing you can do about it. You can try to get resourceful, you can try to figure it out, or what most of us do when things are out of our control is we kind of give up, right? We use that as an escape almost, because if we have all these odds stacked against us, it's almost like permission to not do the work and to not do the things. And so I want you to think of the last time when maybe something was out of your control and how you responded to that. And I think that this is really important. This is an episode that I want to bring into your consciousness so that we can be proactive in this. This last week of not having my voice and being more sick than I ever have in my life, to be honest, has taught me a lot of things. And it's brought a lot of gratitude to my heart for the things that I do have on a daily basis that we often take for granted. And how often do we do that? We go to an event, or we hear a story, or we hear about something, or we read something, and we get this perspective. And then for just a quick moment, we find gratitude for something that we might have lost touch with. Even right now, I'm standing. How often do we take that for granted, that we can walk around? Even my voice. How frustrating it was to try to communicate when the one thing I have written on my whiteboard that I'm trying to improve is effective communication. And I don't have the one tool that I need to do what I need to do. My job requires me to speak. My podcasting obviously requires me to speak. Being a basketball coach requires me to speak. Just being a human being trying to interact, I went through a drive-thru, or I attempted to go through a drive-thru, and I was like one car behind the speaker to order, and I'm like, I can't order because I can't talk. And I was like, wow, I take my voice for granted every single day. And it's just allowed me to have this perspective that I want to share with you. Today is less about a lesson and more about perspective. And I've done episodes before about, are you taking these things for granted? And, what are you not giving enough validation to in your life? And this is Thanksgiving weekend. And so I think that this is also very on par with the theme, or it's Thanksgiving weekend in Canada anyways. And it's, what are those things that you're thankful for? But I think it's deeper than that. I think it's, what is your relationship and response when things go out of your control? And I was thinking back to a different time in my life when my response would have been a lot different. I can think back to when I was a counselor towards the end, because this didn't ring true in the beginning. And towards the end, I remember when some of my clients would cancel, there was a part of me that was like, yes, because I didn't have it in me to show up. And as much as that was out of my control, in that moment, instead of getting proactive and taking action, maybe I can fill that slot with another client or whatever it is, I would just be perfect, an hour to do nothing. I'm sure there was things that I had to do, but I was perfect, a free hour. How many of us have that response when there's a cancellation or when something goes out of our control? We're just thank God I don't have to do anything now. And in hindsight, reflecting back on that, here's the difference between my podcasting now and that situation. I deeply value this. I deeply value showing up on here. There's an emotional association with it. Whereas those clients, when they wouldn't show up, the difference was that I was burnt out, and to me, I had less of that emotional investment into it. AKA, I didn't care about it as much. And I'm not saying it in the way on a personal level that I did not care about those people. That honestly could not be further from the truth. I as an individual was just as burnt out, and so my value wasn't placed there anymore. There's a reason I stepped away from that position, because I knew that I could not be an effective worker if I was in that headspace. And so I had to make that decision. But as I was reflecting on these two different times in my life, I'm like, okay, it's because I deeply value this. You will respond differently when things are out of your control in a situation when it's something you value. And I think that if your response is to say, well, that sucks, or thank God, it's probably because you didn't want to do it in the first place anyway. That happens to us all the time. And if you're sitting there and you're like, how would I respond? I want you to think of the times in your life right now, the places, the people, whatever, that you are investing your energy into. And if something in one of those areas went out of your control, which ones would you value the most? Which ones would you do everything you can to show up? Family is likely a huge one, where if something went wrong with your kids or with your spouse or with a family member, you would drop everything and tend to it. That's because you largely value it. But let's say you're at work and you have to write a big proposal, or you have to write a grant, or you have 10 clients that day. Let's say the deadline gets pushed or your clients cancel. Is there a part of you that's like, yoo-hoo, amazing, I didn't want to do it anyway? It's because you don't value it, likely to the degree that you think that you do. And I think that it's important that we ask ourselves this question, not only so we can be proactive in it, but also so you can recognize what you truly align with in your life. I would not be here with a scratchy voice sounding terrible on the microphone if I didn't deeply care about how this one decision is going to affect me down the road. I made this promise over a year ago that I would not miss. It's been almost a year and a half of not missing 2 episodes a week. To miss now, that wouldn't sit well with me. I want you to think and future pace for yourself. If you were to not do something, not show up for something, how is that going to make you feel in the future? I want you to assess for your life where it would actually bother you. Like it would deeply bother you to lose control of something? Are you emphasizing enough value on that in advance right now? I want you to think of your job, think of your family, think of your passions, think of your hobbies. What is your response when one of those things goes out of your control? How are you adapting to show up differently? And if your response is, yay, hooray, why are you investing your time in it in the first place? I have been largely talking about living in alignment lately on this podcast because it wasn't until I got certain things out of my life that I was able to make capacity to be a basketball coach. I know that opportunity would not have circulated to me if I didn't get rid of other things that were investing my time. As I've shared with you guys, I stepped away from one-on-one coaching because, again, I wasn't showing up as the best coach possible. I was burnt out. And I know that if I hadn't stepped away from that opportunity wouldn't have been brought in. I think this question can bring up a lot of things. How do you respond when things are out of your control? Because it just, again, it emphasizes what you actually care about. This kept me up at night thinking, how am I gonna do it? What am I gonna do? And I told myself, okay, show up today, be imperfect, but hit the rep because that's gonna make you feel better than to not do it. And then knowing that I can record Thursday's episode a little bit later in the week, hopefully when I sound a little bit better. But what will actually bother you? If something goes out of your control, what are those things that will sincerely hurt your heart? Will make you feel uncomfortable? Will make you get resourceful? There's likely something in your life that you would do anything to protect. What is that thing? And what is your response when something around that goes out of your control? So that is what I'm going to leave you all with today. Again, today's episode was a little bit shorter. My voice is killing me, so I hope that you bear with me and know that the quality will be increased, hopefully, in the next one. And I just am so grateful for each and every one of you. Again, we have been growing on YouTube, and I'm so thankful for that. I'm thankful for each and every one of you that take the time to tune in, that take the time to show up and just share with me how this show has impacted you. We are 2 years into this journey, which is crazy to think. And I want you all to know that if you don't have that thing in your life yet that would bother you to not show up for, know that it does exist for you. You have to find it. It exists for all of us. There's something that when we associate our heart with something, we begin to show up differently. It's the things that we value and that we care about. And if you haven't found it yet, you will. But sometimes you have to get away from the things that aren't serving you first so that you can make room for those things. So thank you guys so much as always. I appreciate and care about each and every one of you so deeply. And I look forward to chatting to you all on Thursday. Bye, you guys.